everybody. How are you? I hope you're having a really great Wednesday. I'm Abby Glassenberg, if I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, and I'm the co-founder and president of Craft Industry Alliance, and we are the trade association for the crafts industry. So we provide news coverage and networking opportunities and ongoing professional development for everybody who works in the crafts industry. And each Wednesday we do a live here on Instagram where we get to spotlight one of our amazing members. And I'm super excited to be welcoming Lorelai from Pigs in the Blanket Quilting today. She has a new book coming out soon, I hear, and some other exciting things. So she'll be joining us in a moment. And next gen artists that we're featuring at our industry trade show, H&H Americas. So I'm very excited to hear from her. Hi, Lorelai. How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good. I have never had a chance to meet you, and so this is very exciting for me. I've been watching your beautiful blossoming career for a long time from afar, but it's super
Oh,
cool to be able to see you and have you here. And I think I might be able to, let's see, I was going to say Amelia, I know is here too, and I think I can invite her also. I have to admit, I've never done an Instagram Live with two people, so this might be
I
new.
get that.
Hi, how are you, Amelia?
Hi, I'm well. I'm Lorelai's Amelia Johansson, Lorelai's acquiring editor, and I'm just here to kind of join in the conversation and talk about how great she has been for the industry. So
That's fantastic. And I have to give myself credit. I've never done Instagram Live with two people, and I made it work. So
it
yes,
works.
very excited when technology is in my favor. So Lorelai, tell us a little bit about yourself because you're somebody who's obviously a young person who's been very accomplished in quilting. And I guess my first question would be like, how did this all get started for you? Were you just like super interested in this as a kid, or how did it begin?
That's a great question. It's actually a really interesting story, too. So, when I was 11 years old, I was in the middle of the COVID pandemic. I had a little sewing experience under my belt, like a couple pillowcases, but I had the most, sorry, my cat is on me right now.
I love
I had
cash.
the most dangerous thing for an only child to have. I had free time. And so when the pandemic hit, I found myself at my grandma's house and I went down to her basement to look for a sewing tool because I was sewing. I was bored one day and I found this box of fabric strips that my great great grandmother cut out.
Oh,
And I
wow.
sewed those strips into a quilt, and that was where everything kind of spiraled from. And from there, it's just been this gigantic journey.
That is so amazing. So you've got a lot of quilters, it sounds like, in your family, like going way back. That is so lucky.
Actually, she's the only one. Well,
Oh,
that's the latest quilter besides me. That's we get that a lot. Does your mom quilt? Does your grandma quilt? Because quilting is a very generational art. My mom and my grandma actually aren't big quilters. They know how to sew. They taught me how to use a machine. You know the basics, like don't sew over your finger. um, but other than that, it's really been self-teaching and a lot of trial and error. But I really try to draw inspiration from my great great grandmother who left those scraps in the first place.
oh, and what was her first name?
That's a great question. I believe it was Melba. I always get that wrong.
Okay, that's cool though. Well, we're honoring her, so that's fantastic. Okay, so you started there. You made this quilt, with some strips that you had found in your grandma's basement. And so, what was kind of the next step? How did you get connected with kind of the online quilting world? Realize, hey, wait, there's a lot to learn here.
Yeah, that's a good story too. Because I at the time I was 12 years old when I officially started my business, and I had no connections to social media whatsoever. Aside from the fact that it was the middle of the COVID pandemic and everyone was isolated anyways, I had just started doing homeschooling, so I didn't really get the whole social media wave right when it came in. So I was brand new to. I didn't even know there was really an online community of quilters until I started digging into it. I was really surprised to find this whole other world out there. And it was suggested to me that I start a Facebook account because that's what you do as a business. And I didn't know that at the time. I was very brand new to everything. And so they're like, you have to have social media, you have to be in the online community because that's how you grow a business now. And so I got into Facebook and I started posting some of the silliest things ever. I look back at some of my old posts and I'm thinking, what was I thinking? But that's where I grew a community from. And now I have this huge network of supporters, and it's just the best thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I have seen you at several different trade shows. and you've been walking the aisles wearing the most gorgeous dresses. So besides quilts, I mean, you turn quilts into clothing. So how did that first start for you? And tell us about some of those.
Yeah, I saw the quilted jacket trend really pick up, and the only child in me said, I want to do that, but I want to do it differently. And I said, what if I could make a quilted dress or a quilted skirt? And so that's what I did. Now, I didn't dive right into a quilted dress. First, I would pick up some pieces from our local thrift stores, some like old jackets, things like that, and add little pieces of quilted flair to them. And then I started to pick up old like 70s Butterick sewing patterns, and I would sew those together and just replace the main fabric with these like quilted panel pieces that I would make. I would piece the fabric, quilt it, and then cut out the pattern pieces from that. That's a common misconception too, is people ask, do you cut up quilts to make your designs? I've actually developed a system where I make little panels. I piece the panels and then I quilt the panels and I cut it out from that. That way I can get all of my patterns centered the way I want. Like in this dress over here, I have the diamonds centered in the front and I've got the flying geese around the skirt. And so that's kind of my way to really mix it up. But I made my first full outfit and I wore it to the Houston International Quilt Market, I think, what, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe? And it was this big like purple jacket, a very fitted suit, and I actually have a photo of me making the exact same pose as the girl on the pattern, unintentionally, funny enough. But it was a really proud moment for me to think, wow, I had this idea and I made it.
Yeah, that's super cool. And it's very striking because in some way, I mean, I think we saw this with QuiltCon, like the aisles of a show are a little bit like, a runway, and you can walk up and
Yes.
down and everybody sees you and remarks on what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Honestly, that is where we come in at Fox Chapel, Landauer, is we, I saw a Lorelai doing just that with her mom and approached her and just said, wow, this is fantastic. We see so many young people in this industry, and that's so important to encourage that, which is what Lorelai is doing. And I had her tech edit a book for me right after that. And she did such an incredible job at what, 13, 14 years old, that I thought, oh, she has a book in her. And she is who we want as the face of young people diving into this industry. And she's been incredible to try to get that word out, that how rewarding and just quilting is just such a big part of all of our lives. And to try to build that, since we don't have it in schools anymore, through a young voice is really
That's,
important.
yeah, so
It's been such a
cool.
great journey.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the book. When is it coming out? What is it about?
Yes, so the book is called Lorelai's First Time Quilter's Handbook, and I wrote it for other young quilters or just beginner quilters because all quilters are young at heart. But I wrote this for new quilters who are getting into it and they're kind of intimidated by all of the terminology that's being thrown around because people do a great job when you get into quilting of making it seem really difficult. But if you break it down, it can really be a simple and easy process. And so I put together basically everything that people did. People assume that I knew the things that I wish that people would have told me, and I put them into a book. So it's ridiculously detailed. I've made sure to put in a ton of photos. If you're a visual learner, there's a lot of photos in there. I also put in every single little thing that I could think of that if I still remember the unique perspective part is I still remember where I messed up. So I put in every single instance of, hey, when I did this the first time, I messed up here. So here's how you can avoid that. And it's really just a book that shows you that quilting is not as hard as you think it is. And there's a lot of really fun little tips in there.
Awesome. And when is this book available in bookstores or also available for shops to maybe wholesale?
So yes, the book is available pre-order right now, but I think it'll be, correct me if I'm wrong, Amelia, but it should be in stores May 19th.
Yes, that sounds about right. And we will be at H&H. She's got a big splash at H&H coming up in May,
Yes.
and we'll be signing books there. And we're really excited to have her kind of be the face of our booth this time around.
Yeah, that's super. Very fun. So I know at H&H we always do a next gen artist, which I think is really unique and lovely about this show is featuring somebody who is a young person who's doing great things in craft and sort of helping to bring the next generation into the industry. And so you are the next gen artist at H&H. So what does that entail for you? Like what kinds of things will you be doing in that role?
Oh, it's going to be a huge storm. I'm really excited for it. I've got a really full schedule. We're still ironing out everything that's on my schedule because it's so cram packed and I cannot wait for it. But I'm doing book signings. I'll have a booth where I'll be talking about some of my work. I'll have my work displayed. I'll be part of the cosplay competition. I've got something in the fashion show. I'm
Ah,
doing talks on the main stage and I'll be walking around the show the entire time. So I'll be there pretty much everywhere.
that is amazing. So everyone who's coming to H&H, look for Lorelai and go to some of those events and have a chance to say hello. So tell me a little bit about how you are balancing all of this with schoolwork because you are, I believe, still in high school. Tell us what
Yes.
grade you are in high school and how you're kind of balancing this because I'm a mom of three kids and two are in college, one is in high school, and I know there's a lot of demands on high school students
Yes.
today. So how are you fitting in tech editing, writing a book, doing appearances, etc., with like day-to-day demands of just being in high school?
Yeah, it's a very unique situation for me. As I mentioned, during the pandemic, I switched to homeschooling, which not in the form that most people think about, where your parent is your teacher. My parents both have full-time jobs, and we don't. My mom and I are too similar. We don't get along well enough to sit down for like 8 hours a day and do schoolwork. But it works really well, being the stubborn only child that I am, to have an online class. And so I went through the University of Missouri. They have online professors there, so I was able to take all of my courses online, and that was really flexible for the first few years of my business because I could do my schoolwork wherever and whenever, and it really just let me fit it in whenever I could. This year is a bit different, and we're learning that. For the past couple years, I've been taking a couple online classes through the University of Central Missouri. They have a dual credit program, so I get like one college credit, one high school credit. So I'm technically a senior in high school slash sophomore in college, but this semester I'm taking 18 credit hours. So that has been an adventure to fit it in because with the book launch and my fabric launch that just came out. So that's been quite the adventure.
That's amazing. Okay, well, kudos to you for figuring it out. And I love that there's so many more flexible options for people who want to maybe have a slightly different path and, become an entrepreneur or pursue another passion while they're young. So I think that that's really remarkable. And so what is your long-term plan? I mean, you have this business, how old are you now?
I just turned 17 last week.
Congratulations. Happy
Happy
birthday.
Thank
birthday.
you.
So yeah, so
Thank
you are
you.
17, you have this business, you've done a lot of the things that people who are much older than you have on their wish lists in their business, like writing a book and doing all the different kinds of speaking and being in the fashion show, et cetera, at H&H. So all of those things. So what is the long-term vision that you have for your business?
So next year I'll be going to a college out of state for business. They have a really great business school, so I'll be going there and I'll be getting my entrepreneurship degree. And that way I can really help to kind of hone in where I'm going with fashion because I love to learn fashion hands-on. I feel like fashion is something that I've kind of figured out myself, quilting and fashion both. I love the creative aspect. I don't feel like I like a structured education. I'm more of a let's get in there and see what happens, trial and error kind of person when it comes to that. But for business, I really want to learn the proper way to expand my business and talk to a bigger audience of people. And I feel like a business school will really help with that. So I'm going to get my degree there and then keep doing exactly what I'm doing now. I'm still going to be operating Pigs in a Blanket Quilting and my new fashion brand that just launched, Lorelai Ray. So I'll keep doing both of those things. And hopefully, especially with the help of the book, I'll be inspiring more young quilters.
That's super cool. And tell us where the name Pigs in the Blanket came from.
That's a good question too. Yeah, pigs have always been my favorite animal. As a little kid, I've always loved pigs, and I thought blanket is kind of close to quilt. When I started my business, I was also 12, and so I thought pigs in a blanket quilting, it really goes together.
Yeah, it's super cute. And everybody can kind of, it feels like comfy. I feel like, Pigs in the Blanket is also a yummy snack and it feels that has
Yes.
that cozy feeling to it as well. So that's super cute. And tell us about the fashion brand because I do think like you have such a strength in fashion and in quilting. So tell us about that piece.
Yeah, when I started my quilting business, my plan was to just do quilting for the rest of my life. I loved long arming and I loved making t-shirt quilts for clients. But I since picked up the fashion aspect of it, where I still get to do all of the long arming and the piecing, but then I get to turn it into a dress or a skirt at the end. And that kind of took on a life of its own. So I decided to give it a brand of its own, which is Lorelai Ray. So I'm on lorelairay.official on Instagram and Lorelai Ray on Facebook. And that channel is really just a way to kind of dive deeper into my fashion career and like how I make my dresses, the process behind my creative thinking. And I'm still going to be operating Pigs in a Blanket Quilting just like normal. Lorelai Ray is just an add-on. So Pigs in a Blanket Quilting is where you'll find a lot of the information about the book and the projects that are going to be in the book.
Okay, super. And Amelia, I would love to hear your thoughts on, you found Lorelai at a show,
Mhm.
and now she's got this beautiful book coming out, which is really exciting. So for other folks who are thinking, I would love to be found at a show, and say, and selected by a publisher to do something like this, what advice would you give them as far as like, yeah, just being somebody who stands out or seems like they would be an excellent future author?
Well, in Lorelai's case, she was just, it was just, like I said, it was just so unique to see such a young child be so enthusiastic about quilting. So that helped. And wearing what she had on, I mean, I think you were probably there. All of the booths would just, turn the look. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So, making a splash like that without really saying a word was phenomenal. But I don't have a problem with people coming right up to us in our Fox Chapel booth and just saying, "Hey, I've got an idea for a book. What do you think about this?" It's always good to have that foundation. Lorelai already had Pigs in a Blanket. She kind of had started building her reputation before we dove into a book. But so that's part, like she said, social media is part of the industry. So you really need to kind of establish a brand to get an audience for your book these days. But I mean, I am open to all ideas. I'm open to talking to anybody. I answer my email. We have an acquisitions email at Fox Chapel that you can just throw ideas in, and I always look at them and entertain them because it's just always nice to find that diamond in the rough. And if you're that person, I'm certainly willing to discuss a book with you.
That's
About it.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think it also just speaks to the value of showing up in person. There
exactly.
you were, like in person, spending time talking to people, seeing people and being seen by people. And, that FaceTime makes a big difference. I think, sending somebody photos is good, but being able to be in the room is even better.
It really is. It really is. And I understand that H&H has two segments now, or at least they're trying out where there's a retail segment and a wholesale segment. So,
Yes.
catching either one of those is really important to just immerse yourself where everyone is, where it's happening is
Yeah.
important. Hmm.
Absolutely. So it is a business expense, but it is definitely worthwhile. And you don't have to necessarily do it every year, but we really recommend that you do it at some point, especially if you want some new opportunities.
Absolutely.
So all right, Lorelai, show us your book one more time. Tell us the title one more time, and let us see it so that we can, make sure our shop owners know about it and maybe want to, wholesale it. Also, maybe do some workshops for young people based on it, etc.
Yes, so the book is Lorelai's First Time Quilter's Handbook, and it has 8 projects in it, along with the first half is all techniques, so all of the detailed tutorials, how I get to where I get to. My favorite part is the math chats, where I talk about how I get to all these random dimensions that I'm throwing at you in the technique chapters. Now, my mom can verify you don't need to know anything about math to follow the book. She tested it out. She's not a math person. I am. So I put in that math behind it if you want to look at it. But the second half is 8 different projects, and they're all unique projects. Only one of them is a flat quilt. The rest are 3D things like my quilted bell bottoms, which I've gotten a lot of requests for.
Ah,
We have
fun.
quilted canvas, quilted pillow, all kinds of unique projects to show you that quilting can be anything you want it to be.
That's super cool. Yeah.
Quick fun story. My son is in the music industry, and someone he works for who used to play violin for Taylor Swift and performs asked Lorelai to make a pair of those jeans for her. So,
Ah,
networking is really important.
that is
Yes.
super
Yeah,
cool. And I
yeah.
think, being able to create something unique and trendy, I think is
Hmm.
what really captures young people. I mean, it captures all of us, but especially young people who might see it on TikTok or something like that and then want to be able to make it themselves and have something to wear that nobody else has.
Hmm.
It's truly an expression of themselves. So this is a way to do that.
And that's my favorite part. Everyone's talking about how making your own clothes is not cheaper than buying them as it used to be. But that's why I'm really trying to highlight the importance of making things you can't buy. And that's my favorite way to use sewing, is because yes, it might be more expensive, but you can't get a quilted dress in a store. You can't get quilted bell bottoms in a store. So there is still definitely value in sewing and quilting. It might not be cheaper than buying your own clothes, but it's more sustainable sometimes, and it's more unique, and it's a better way to express yourself. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, definitely
100%.
more satisfying.
For sure.
Yeah, so good. All right, Lorelai, this was great. Great to meet you. Thanks to Fox Chapel for joining us
Of
today.
course.
And that's been lovely. I loved having two guests, and both of
Yeah.
you were awesome. So thanks to everybody who joined us for our member spotlight this week. And we will see you at H&H.
For sure. Thanks for having us.
All
Thank you
right,
for
bye,
having me.
everybody. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.